Once you leave Red Square, you can get to Manezhnaya Square. And the landscape of this place had been changing throughout the ages. For example, in the 19th century, the wooden buildings which used to be here were replaced with the stone ones. And then, at the end of the 19th century, the beautiful building of State Historical Museum was constructed. So it is a bright example of the Russian revival style. Inside, you can find more than 30 halls describing Russian history from the very Stone Age up to the 20th century. Next to the State Historical Museum, you will find a monument which was installed especially for the commemoration of the 50th anniversary from the victory of the Second World War. It is devoted to the military leader of the Soviet Army, Marshal Zhukov, so he held this post during the Second World War. It represents the horseman, and the horse is stamping the eagle as a symbol of Nazi Germany, and the eagle is with the cut wings. Below it, you will find the depiction of St. George slaying the dragon, so it's a kind of association or symbol that good things are always taking over the bad things. There is a legend which says that Stalin himself, he was 65 years old at that time, wanted to lead the victory parade on Red Square on this horse, but he never even trained for horse riding before, so he couldn't make it, and then he said that let Zhukov would lead the parade on Red Square. Manezhnaya Square, or the area here, used to be the belly of Moscow. You could find shops of all the kinds. In 1930s, especially for the construction of the hotel, which is just behind me, they commissioned to pull all of this building down. So in 1930s, the hotel called Moskva was constructed. There is another legend which says that Stalin ordered the construction of the hotel, and Shushev managed to make two different projects but presented them on the same paper. So Stalin signed in the middle. Not to offend the high-ranking officials and the leader of the state, Shushev had to combine two projects and construct the hotel in this style. So when you look at it, you will find out that it's a bit not unproportional, but the windows on one side and the windows on the other side are very different. These days, it's not the Hotel Moskva anymore. It's owned by Four Seasons. Next to the Resurrection Gates in Moscow, so that's the main entrance to Red Square, you will find a very interesting spot. This is so-called 0 kilometer, and we believe that all the road starts just over here. So it is decorated with the plates representing different animals from different parts of Russia, from the south, north, east and west. If you come to the center of this place and close your eyes and make a wish and then drop the coin, there are many versions. You either come back to Moscow, or you will find the way in your life, or even you will just get lucky. That's it. In the city center, you can get to Alexander Garden, which is one of the war memorials in Moscow. Since 1960s, it has been hosting the Tomb of a Non-Soldier and the Eternal Flame, which commemorates the soldiers passed away during the Second World War. It consists of 5 stairs leading us to the 5 pointed stars, and above it you will find the flame, which is lightning the words, "Your name is unknown, but your feet will stay in mind forever." The Eternal Flame and the Tomb of a Non-Soldier are guarded with the soldiers of the Presidential Regiment. You can see them changing every hour, every day. From this point, the alley with the porphyry tombs starts. Inside, you will find the soils brought from the particular cities of the Soviet Union. We call them city heroes, and within them, Kiev, Stalingrad, Leningrad, Odessa, Brest Fortress, Moscow, and others and others. At the end of the alley of city heroes, you will find the Grotto. In the 19th century, it was normal to set the grotto in the park. This grotto is quite unusual. It reminds us about the Great Fire which happened in Moscow in the year 1812 during the invasion of French Emperor Napoleon. Napoleon wanted to get Russia or to defeat Russia in one major battle, but he didn't manage to do this as Russian troops were retreating for a long time until they came to Moscow. And a very hard decision was made to leave Moscow to the enemy. On the 13th of September of 1812 at the evening, Napoleon troops came to Moscow. And it was a time of the year when it becomes very cold here, and there are two versions why the fire started in Moscow. The first one, very Russian, says that these were the troops of Napoleon who started to make little fires here and there and everywhere, and it created a great fire which destroyed more than 80% of the city buildings. The other version says that these were the Muscovites who didn't want to leave anything to the enemy. They set on fire all of the storages and supplies, so it caused the great fire. Anyways, then you come here, you can find out that the grotto is made of stones. They are very unusual because these are the stones or remains of the former buildings of Moscow, which were destroyed by fire. Even you can come up close and see some bas-reliefs from the, let's say, aristocratic buildings. In 1913, Russian Empire was celebrating a very great event, 300th anniversary from the establishment of the second dynasty of Russian state, Romanov dynasty. And the decision was made to install a special obelisk which would have the list of the names of the Russian rulers from the Romanov dynasty. It's just behind me, but the thing is that after the revolution of 1917, it was put down and again reinstalled after the collapse of the USSR. From the Alexander Garden, it's also possible to get to the Kremlin. If you want to have a tour on the territory of the Kremlin, it's possible. You have to get the tickets and then get into the territory through the special gates, then by the bridge, and until you get into the tower, which is known as Troitskaya Tower, also with the clocks as the Spasskaya one. In the Alexander Garden, you will find the ticket office for the Kremlin museums. Here you can buy all of the tickets for the Diamond Fund, for the National Treasury, the Armory Chamber, and for the territory of the Kremlin. You can purchase the tickets online, but even though you still have to come to the ticket office before your scheduled time to change the confirmation letter into a real ticket. After the War of 1812, Alexander, the Russian Emperor Alexander I, the monument to him you can see just behind me, ordered the construction of the commemorative places. Within them was the Cathedral of Christ the Savior in Moscow, Kazan Cathedral in St. Petersburg, and the laying out of the beautiful park in Moscow, the Alexander Garden. Especially for that, the second river of Moscow, Neglinnaya River, was enclosed into pipes, and now it runs just underground. But for some time, when Kremlin had a military significance, it was the part of the fortification system or protection defense system of the city. Manezhnaya Square is called after the building which is located on it. The building is known as Manege. It was completed in the year 1817, and the first function was for the review of troops or review of cavalry garrison. And then since the 1830s, it had been used as a place for the different exhibitions, different festivals, and sometimes even dancing balls. But when the government changed, after the revolution of 1917, the place was used as the barracks for the soldiers. Then it changed the function and became the place as known as the Kremlin garage, with the cars of the high-ranking officials and the Soviet leaders. These days, Manege is the central exhibition hall which hosts different events and exhibitions, even for the companies, so commercial ones. Here you can visit also Russian Fashion Week, which takes place every year.